The following video podcast is a presentation of News Talk 760, WJR.
This is PNC RoundTable.
Hello, this is Ric DeVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC RoundTable. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC RoundTable.
Welcome into the PNC Roundtable. Hi, I'm Paul W. Smith with my co-host, PNC's Ric DeVore. Ric, nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Paul.
You've brought along a very nice guest, but you always do.
Well, this is going to be fun.
This is indeed. We're happy to welcome in the new Vice Chairman of Palace Sports and Entertainment, reporting right directly to owner Tom Gores, and following a distinguished career as one of the top player agents in all of sports. He's now the representative of the ownership, and he has broad responsibility for business strategy, planning, development, and strengthening the connection between Palace Sports and Entertainment and the community. What a pleasure it is to welcome the Vice Chairman, Palace Sports and Entertainment, and Detroit Pistons, Arn Tellem.
Very happy to be here. With that kind of introduction, we should stop now. I can go home and call it a day.
I used up most of our time, so we may have to go home.
I can't say it any better than that.
You are said to be, by Mr. Gores and others, as one of the most accomplished and respected sports executives in the world. Tell me why you're here. Why did he reach out for you, Arn, with all of your talents in so many different ways? What does he want you to do here?
Well, it was probably a year process, and it started really when a headhunter that was working for him called me to get some advice on their hiring of the next coach. And I recommended Stan Van Gundy. And that's how we began this relationship. They called me in to meet, and we had a number of conversations. But it really wasn't until a year later that they came back to me and said, would you be interested in a broader opportunity to work with us overseeing basketball business and representing ownership on the ground? And for me, at this stage of my life, I thought it was a great opportunity to have a greater impact on an organization, a team, how a team intersects with a community, and trying to make a difference. And I had a great run as a sports agent for 30-plus years. And I just thought it was time to explore and challenge myself and do something different. And I'm thrilled to be here. I think it's an exciting city and community to be part of. There's a lot going on. And I was really inspired by, I know Dan Gilbert well and his people. And whether it was Dan Gilbert or Roger Penske and all the people that really have made a difference here, Chris Ilitch and the Ilitch family, I was really inspired by what was happening in Detroit. And I thought, wow, this would be, besides helping a team, to be part of this community at this time would be really just a wonderful capstone to my professional career.
Arn Tellem, it is certainly a different Detroit than when you were back at the University of Michigan getting your law degree in 1979. The Detroit you saw from Ann Arbor was a world away,
right,
and a world different.
Absolutely. I came down here for a lot of Tiger games when I was in law school. I probably spent more time down here going to sporting events than in the law library. But I remember going to Tiger Stadium to see Mark Fidrych pitch.
Oh boy!
In his prime, and the stadium was packed, and it was just an intense, wonderful, exciting experience to be down here to see those games. And I remember going as a law student to the final days of when the Pistons played at Cobo to see Bob Lanier, who was one of my favorite players, and which was also fun. It was just great memories. But I really enjoyed coming down to Detroit in those days. There was a gritty feel, and but you can see that a lot has changed for the better now, and I think it's going to continue on its road to recovery.
What are some of your other impressions back now in Detroit of the city?
I think it's really the spirit of the people. I'm from Philadelphia, and I find it very similar. There's an underdog mentality, maybe without the Philly attitude, but a real underdog spirit here. And I like being part of that. It's part of my DNA coming from Philly, and there's a real sense of I'm going to quote the Pope, of cooperating for the common good. Between business and community leaders and and I think that's really the thing that I'm really sensed from the 3 weeks that I've been here is this sense of everyone wanting to cooperate for the betterment of of Detroit and the Detroit community.
It sounds, Arn Tellem, as the new vice chairman, Palace Sports and Entertainment and Detroit Pistons, when we read what Mr. Gores says he needs you for, he wants you for, and it is strengthening the connection and the community. And the community, in this case, really is, I mean, the elephant in the room is Detroit. And you're out in Auburn Hills, and you know certainly you've been filled in and probably followed it along the way. All the discussion and conversation of people saying, well, if they're the Detroit Pistons, they should be in Detroit. So is it your job to bridge that, keep the Pistons in Auburn Hills, but yet have a very good Detroit presence?
Yeah, I think I don't think playing here is the requirement to make an impact in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And I think we can be involved in business, leadership, and philanthropy in Detroit, and in all aspects make an impact and be part of the community. And really, we got to remember, I think the spirit here is not pitting communities against one another. It's not pitting the suburbs against the city. It's all of us are here to do what's right for Detroit and the metropolitan area. And a team is a great unifying force. If we can get this team right, and I think it's on the road to being back to an elite team, we have a lot of good young players. I think that the Pistons, as much as any team, can really be that unifying force for the city and represent it well, and do good things here as well for the people of Detroit.
You know, it's I can't help but say this, and Arn doesn't know this story, but the day that Coach was hired, Dennis Mannion was riding shotgun in my car, driving up to Lansing.
He's the CEO for those following along. Yeah.
He was in my car. I was taking him to his first Business Leaders for Michigan meeting when the story broke that we were going to be hopefully hiring Stan Van Gundy. So I didn't get a lot of time to prep him on what the board was like, obviously, and he was a little distracted. But it's kind of ironic how some of these things kind of come full circle, if you will. And it seems like that was yesterday, but it was obviously a while ago.
No, and I think that's one of the strengths of Tom is that he's really hired great people. I think when anyone buys a sports franchise, the first few years really are a learning experience for everyone. It's a whole different project than just running a business. It's high visibility and it's a community asset. But he really has now in Dennis and Stan two great leaders of one the business operations and the basketball operations. And I'm here to help them and support them. And my initial focus has really been, for the last few weeks, really getting to know everyone at the Palace and then the Pistons. And now I'm starting to broaden out now more into the community and starting to meet people in the business community.
What are your early agenda items? What are you looking to accomplish in the near term, and what's the long term goal?
Well, in the short term, really, it has been to get to know, starting with the Palace and the Pistons, getting to know the people and getting to know the executive team in particular, and starting to deal with sort of helping Dennis and a little bit, Stan on the issues that come up every day. Second, it's now to start to meet people, to develop a plan for how we're going to engage with the business community and philanthropy in Detroit, and to develop a plan over the next sort of 60 to 90 days. And that really involves meeting a lot of business leaders, community leaders, and getting ideas and trying to formulate a plan that we can sort of use as a roadmap, for the, going into the next year and the years beyond. And things are starting to, we can see possibilities already, but that's really what it's about. It's really to learn, ask a lot of questions, meet people, and I can fill my day with meetings. The last 3 weeks have been exhausting. I collapse in bed every night after all the meetings, and that's what I have to do right now, is really spend my time getting out there and meeting as many key people as I can.
Well, that sounds like a banker life there, doesn't it? Meetings. But, one of the things that I wanted to cover, and it's a sensitive issue, but there have been some media reports that Tom now owns the entire team.
Right.
And so the other part of that question is there's been some reports that maybe you're destined for a partial ownership of the team. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, I think the first step was Tom getting full ownership back, and the plan is for me to have an interest, hopefully at some point within the next, by the end of the year. And I hate to put it some timetables because these things sometimes take time, but hopefully sooner than later.
It needs league approval.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
And it was a big inducement. I mean, it had to take something to get you away from what you were doing because you were so successful at it.
No, I enjoyed it. I had a great run, and it was incredibly meaningful to me. And I use the word meaningful in the sense that that's really what it's about, is to have a sense that you're doing something that gives you a sense of purpose. And I needed that, and that was one of the reasons I came here. I think I had done all I could as a sports agent, and at this stage of my life, I wanted to do something where I had a chance to grow and stimulate myself as far intellectually and make a greater impact.
Think of Arn Tellem's value to any team owner when it comes time to negotiate contracts. I mean, think about this. For the first time in your life, really, you're on the other side of the table. You know what you did and what agents do to try to get those figures up. And now you're in a perfect position to maybe help them have a little more realistic understanding of where those contracts should be.
Well, I'm constantly kidded by my players who have called to congratulate me that I've gone to the dark side. And, but I'm hoping to be of support to Stan and Jeff Bauer, the general manager, and help. That's probably one of the areas where I think I can help them behind the scenes, is just guide them on negotiations and managing our salary cap in the future, so we have the best shot to attract top free agents or make good trades in the future.
Paul, I just envision this room, and then people walk in, they look at Arn and say, "He's here." but it's interesting because the math of sports now is so different with the upcoming salary cap increase and what's available out there. It just seems like you must have this big board in some room trying to keep track of availability, whose contracts are ending, and is it possible you could kind of walk us through a little bit of that? Because I don't know if the audience knows the cap is going up. Maybe we could just cover a little bit.
Well, the cap is going up roughly almost 40% over the next few years.
Wow.
It's projected, I think, to be in 2 or 3 years over $100 million.
Okay.
With that, hopefully for us, as it relates to the Pistons, if we can manage our salaries and roster well, our hope is to have the room to be able to attract a maximum salary free agent. And that's not easy, because if you look at the Lakers and Knicks as examples, who are two premier teams and the historic teams in premier markets, as they would say, big markets, they're going through a rough rebuilding process now, and it's taking them time. So it's not easy in the current environment to attract free agents, because most free agents have the inducement to sign with their home team, the teams that draft them. So you don't see many top stars leaving. But you do want to put yourself in a position to have that shot to get a quality free agent. And two, you also want to put yourself in a position by having cap flexibility to be able to make a significant trade for a player that has a big contract. That's another way to improve the team. So it's not just signing free agents, it's trades, it's also the draft. The one thing that I think Stan has really done well is he now has a good collection of young talent to grow the team. So we have a good core. We just need to add, 2 or 3 more pieces to it, and I think we can have an elite team.
Knowing that Tom Gores would like to expand upon his current endeavors that make a difference in Detroit and the region, and knowing, Arn, tell him what you said a moment ago about the ways you believe sports teams in general can make an impact on a region, both socially and economically. Tell me some of the other ways now that you've given some great thought to that you might move forward on.
Outside of the Pistons?
The other ways that you can help make a difference.
Yeah, I think there's 2 areas, and which leads to a third. But one is clearly in philanthropy and being involved in the community and supporting programs that will make a difference. And there's a lot of good work that's going on, and we just have to find the right way with our expertise and obviously resources to find a couple signature programs that we can be part of and grow. So that's one way. The second thing is in the business world, we're not limited to just the basketball team. We own music venues in the Detroit metropolitan area. We're looking to acquire more, and not just in Detroit, but throughout the state of Michigan. And we're also looking at possible ways to make investments in downtown Detroit. So it could be a residential fund. It could be partnering with with Dan or Chris or other people in other real estate ventures. We could be looking at ways to buy businesses. Tom obviously runs one of the largest private equity firms and has access to incredible capital, and so we're going to look at ways to deploy that here in the future. So there's ways in the business, and which leads to the third aspect is, Detroit really in its recovery has been blessed by a lot of businessmen who have taken a real role, like Dan Gilbert, Roger Penske, Chris Illich, in the community, just to name a few, and there's many more. And with involvement and commitment and doing things, you put yourself potentially in a leadership position to impact the future, and that's clearly something that we want to be part of. So I think it's from a philanthropy, business, and leadership aspect that will hopefully be involved, and they all sort of merge into one.
Well, I'm not surprised. You've done your homework. You know the players. You've mentioned them a few times, and you're not going to go wrong when you say you want to take a look at what Dan Gilbert's doing and Chris Illich and Roger Penske, and you could add to that Matt Simoncini, who just bought 2 buildings now, one from Dan, and Cindy. I mean, there
are a lot of great
Dan Lepp from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. These are people who really put their money where their mouth was, induced their employees to come live in the city of Detroit, live, work, play, and stay in the city of Detroit. And you obviously understand that and have a feel for that. And it's great news to hear that you're looking, I'm not saying you're doing this, but that you're looking at opportunities right in the city of Detroit, whether it's residential, commercial buildings, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and
having a presence.
Yeah, and having a presence here, and ultimately we will, and we just have to find our path. And it's not going to be day 1 or day 90, but hopefully over the next 3 months, as we develop this plan, then we can execute it. And I think over the next few years, you'll see our presence continue to grow in the city and in this area.
Are you going to have a home in this area as well as
Yeah.
the other places? You probably have places. You will put
I'll be
some
here.
roots here.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And Ric, you were, before we came on, talking a little bit about that law degree from Michigan. So he's no stranger to the area.
I have the burning question here, which is obviously a law degree from Michigan, but Tom is a Spartan. So I'm just
we cover both bases.
I'm a little curious if there's any kind
of
of
the whole program without bringing that up.
So I'm kind of curious if there's any wager coming up here in a few weeks on the 17th, say, or are you going to hold for a couple of years and see how Coach?
No, there'll be a wager.
Does?
No, I like.
Arn Tellem is not a dumb man.
He's going to get points, I hope.
I am a Jim Harbaugh fan and a huge fan of his, and I'm almost tempted to start wearing his attire to the office. And make it mandatory. But
you must have a very good contract.
But no, it's what's interesting here is, and I see it just at the Palace, before on Fridays before games. There's those that are dressed in green, and there's those that are dressed in maize and blue, and it's a lot of fun, as you can imagine. Just as we, getting ready for the game that's coming up in a few weeks. But I'll be at the game, and I'll be in my maize and blue.
Yeah. That many of us will be.
Yeah.
Is this the biggest office you've ever gone to work at? Palace?
It is. Actually, it is. When I spoke to all the employees the first day, I had no idea how many employees there were.
Really?
And there were close to 300, and everyone was so nice, warm, and welcoming. It made me feel very comfortable from the first day I got there, and they've all been great. It's just a great group of people, and it's just so much fun to go into work every day.
Was there any hesitation about coming back? You're back at an area that you were familiar with a long time ago.
Yeah.
Anything in particular, besides a great job and an opportunity for ownership, that enticed you to come back and make a difference like you want to?
I think it was the opportunity that was the most compelling. Geography it was nice to be able to come back to Michigan. For me,
were you always on the road as an agent?
I was always on the road as an agent, and for me, my dream was always to go back to Philly. That really was my dream. And if it wasn't Philly, I think Detroit to me is the closest thing to Philly.
It is close.
And that reminded me so much of Philly, and in a lot of aspects, and it's the same, and what really at the essence of it is the spirit of the people, and that to me is what makes Philly unique and what makes this city unique, and why I know this city is going to come back better than ever, and it's that spirit of the people, and that's what I wanted to be part of.
Well, we're glad you are part of it. Let's talk a little business, a little basketball business. Training camp underway for the Pistons. What are your impressions of Stan Van Gundy and this year's team?
Well, I think really the best move that Tom has made is bring Stan Van Gundy in. Being in the basketball business for 30-plus years, Stan is one of those elite coaches and leaders, and it is so hard for franchises to find those kind of coaches to anchor a franchise, and you need that for stability and leadership and putting a team together. Having that piece is huge going forward, and that's really, to me, the essential piece. If you look at San Antonio, obviously they had Tim Duncan, but Popovich is who's one of the greatest coaches of this generation, is a huge part of that, and what makes it so attractive for players to stay there and want to come there and play. The next thing is we have a great core of young players, in Andre Drummond, and Reggie Jackson, KCP, and now Stanley Johnson. So we have a good core of very good young players to work and build from. And we have all our draft picks going forward, and we have cap space going forward. So we're in a very good position. And I think Stan, really this year you're going to see, I think the team take a significant jump because this is the first year here for him that he really has assembled a team that will play his style of play. So I think you're going to see a competitive team, a very good, a much improved shooting team, a very competitive team that's going to really play very hard and with a lot of grit and determination. And I think they'll be exciting and fun to watch. And I think we're going to take a step forward, and a significant step forward. And a lot of it depends on health. But if we're healthy, I think we're going to be pretty good and competitive. And then hopefully next year, whether it's the trade deadline this year in February or next summer, I think under Stan's leadership, we'll take another step forward. And I think you're going to see now the arc is a real positive one going forward.
You know, Arn, last year, I was just kind of curious. I know you've only been there 3 weeks, but is there a lot of talk around the concept of a better start? I mean, if you look after the first 30 games last year, we had a pretty good ball club, but we started off, if I recall correctly, like 5-23. Steve Courtney can clean me up on that, I'm sure, but I think it was about that. Is there a lot of conversation in camp about, hey, we need to get off to a better start? The schedule wasn't all that great either. There was kind of some strange scheduling.
No,
things.
Getting off to a good start is key. We do, unfortunately, we have a long road trip in early November to the West Coast, which will be challenging,
right,
for a young team early in the season. But I'm very encouraged that we won't have the same kind of start that we did last year, which was unfortunate. But I think we'll get off to a good start this year.
Speaking of getting off to a good start, the Lions.
We're not going to comment on that.
We watched the Lions playing on national television, and we could have lived a lifetime without seeing the Silverdome. But of course, they had to show the Silverdome, which was sad. Are you pleased with your facility, the Palace of Auburn Hills? It seems like we don't let these places get very old before we decide we need another place. Happy with the facility there at the Palace of Auburn Hills?
It's a great facility. If you go back in time, when with the Bad Boys and then with the Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace championship team, that place was packed, and was probably one of the loudest arenas in professional sports. I don't care anywhere. I mean, I remember going there to see Ben play, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack because it was so loud. And it's still a great building, and if we have the right team, the fans will come. And Tom has put over $40 million, close to $50 million in renovations and trying to keep it up over the last few years. And so his commitment to keeping it a world-class arena is no one can question, and is there, he's put his money where his mouth is, and the place is really good, and our hope is to fill it again. That's really the goal. We want to see the fans come back, and we want to give them a product that they'll be proud of to come back.
Are you going to need to do some inducements to get them coming back again? I know winning is a great inducement, but otherwise just to get ticket sales going for the new season?
Well, actually, the ticket sales, are ahead of all of our projections. So the fans, I think, are taking notice and seeing the effort that we're putting in and the team getting better. And the fans are coming back. And I think that trend will only continue.
Paul, when I think sometimes the general fan base, doesn't look at who owns the arena. What I mean by that is sometimes when authorities own arenas, i.e. municipalities, you don't see that continuous reinvestment in the arena. Unlike a hotel, you have to keep investing in it. And the Palace, Mr. Davidson was the same way, and Tom has kept that up. The constant reinvestment, I don't think you look at the chronological age of the arena. You have to look at what's been invested in there. And
right,
I think
how it is today, and it's fabulous from everything
I don't think
see.
There's been any owner in sports that has put as much money into an arena over the last few years as Tom, and his commitment to making this a world-class franchise in all aspects, from the basketball standpoint and hiring Stan and giving him the ability to hire the best people for the basketball organization, and same for Dennis, and his commitment to the arena and keeping that as a first-class arena. I don't think any owner in any sport has put in and invested what he has to make this an elite franchise.
In the people that you've mentioned, and in you, Arn, if he wasn't serious, he wouldn't bring you in.
No, I hate to talk about myself, but yes, you can add that. Yes,
I mean it's a fact.
Yeah, that's what my mother would say.
This is a big commitment.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of your mother, I'm happy to say that.
Yeah.
I do have to say something that you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. Vice Chairman, Palace Sports and Entertainment, and Detroit Pistons, Arn Tellem, here for less than a month and hitting the ground running as the Vice Chairman. You said an interest in buying other entertainment venues in Michigan.
Is this radio station for sale?
Funny you should ask. Name a price, and it very well could be.
Okay.
But is that what you're talking about?
Well, we own. The Palace puts on over 40 events. So it's beyond just basketball. So
right.
Whether it's concerts,
and that's
circus,
important. That's important income,
right,
revenue.
It's important. It's important for the community to have that entertainment.
Correct.
And then with the two amphitheaters, we put on a huge array of summer entertainment. We had a record season this year as far as the acts we brought in, and we have a D-League team now in Grand Rapids. Our minor league basketball team. So we're in the sports and entertainment business, and our goal is to continue to look for ways to broaden that and look for opportunities. We're looking at a couple venues now, and in Michigan, and so we're going to continue to look to expand our efforts in those areas.
I suspect I have to be careful how I ask these questions, but I'll just ask the questions. When you say a couple venues, could a venue also be another team? Or is a venue another building?
No, these are music venues. These are
where
more,
you can have entertainment.
Yeah, it's more entertainment based, not team based.
You're certainly welcome to tell us which ones you're looking.
No, when we have something to announce, we'll tell you.
Well, and
we're looking. There's
and a good example, obviously, Palace Sports and Entertainment. Maybe not obvious to people, but does run Meadowbrook for Oakland University, and I'm a trustee at Oakland. And what's really great about that is it gives up and coming entertainers the chance to start maybe at a smaller venue and work their way up to, whether it's a DTE or at the Palace itself.
Yeah, and DTE we own and operate. So and DTE is another community asset. It provides great entertainment over the course of the summer.
And by the way, Paul and I still call it Pine Knob. I just can't.
No, I don't. No.
Oh, I do.
No. In
Jerry
fact,
Anderson won't be happy with me.
If you were on the radio when we went from Tiger Stadium to Comerica Park, you learned very quickly that you better not slip and say Tiger Stadium. It's Comerica Park. And the same thing happened with DTE Energy. I'm not saying it's easy,
Paul,
but I work hard on saying the DTE Energy Music Theater. Do we?
Well,
we don't have
at PNC Bank.
We don't. Wait a minute. PNC Bank.
Well, we call it the place the Tigers play.
I
just want to point that out to you.
I'm sorry.
It's like that state south of Michigan.
Exactly.
That went right over my head at first. I'm just doing a radio show here. I forgot. Got to make everybody happy. But there is no name on the Palace of Auburn Hills, is there?
Not right now, no.
So, a big opportunity.
That's an opportunity, yeah.
That's a huge opportunity.
Right. Rick?
PNC.
I knew this was a setup.
PNC Palace.
He's going to want a finder's fee. I want to point that out to you.
You tell me, is it 10%, 15%? You would know. Come on.
Well, Paul, as you may or may not know, we already have our name on an arena. It's down in Raleigh, where the Hurricanes play. So I think we'd probably cause confusion with that.
I'm talking about around here, but that's another story. And we're out of time. Arn, Tellem, we wish you good luck any way we can be of help to you along the way. And I know that Rick feels the same way. We welcome you back home, so to speak.
Yes, so to speak.
And we'll
I'm happy to be here.
We'll watch what goes on. And again, if there's any way we can help. And the final word always goes to my co-host, the PNC Bank's Ric DeVore.
I'll tell you, Paul, I think you hit on it, and Arn touched a number of times on, Roger Penske and the Illich family and what Dan Gilbert and his team are doing. And here's another example of a private entity, not a public company. Mm-hmm. And if you look in Grand Rapids, it's the same thing, whether we're talking about, the Meyer family or DeVos, and that's really what's been the rebirth of these cities, is this combination of business leaders, philanthropy, and corporations coming together. And
even, if I can add, we have a Democratic mayor and a Republican governor.
Absolutely.
Two people who have put aside political differences to work together for the common good, and what they've done is truly also inspiring.
It really is.
Well,
so,
we all realize it's a win-win-win situation again, and we're all in this together. And if we don't work together, we're never going to accomplish.
No, that's what it's all about.
What has to happen here. So we're looking forward to working with you, Arn.
Thank you very much. I need your help.
Have we tried to get the Pistons on WJR? Have we worked that deal out? Oh, we're working that out right now. Okay. Arn, thank you for being with us. He's saying to himself, what did I say?
Right.
Why did I say I'd come into this broadcast? Mike, thanks for being with us. Nice to meet you finally face-to-face and to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And on behalf of PNC Bank's Ric DeVore, we'll see you next time on the PNC RoundTable. And I'll be talking to you in the mornings, Monday through Friday from 5:30 till 9. Regards, Paul W. Smith.